Don't miss this year's AUVSI Xponential in Orlando, Florida on April 25th through the 28th. It's the largest global gathering for the drone and uncrewed systems industry, and you're going to want to be a part of it. Go to xponential.org for more information and to register.
I'd say put yourself out there. It's totally easy to get lost in the crowd and just wander around and not talk to anybody and just, take the swag and go home. I would say engage in conversations, exchange business cards. I say get out there, go to all of it, shake hands, meet people, and it's going to be a totally valuable experience.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 356. What is the best way to get your message out? Today's guest has several ideas. Dawn Zoldi is a retired colonel from the United States Air Force. She is also a licensed attorney and the founder and CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. P3 Tech Consulting connects people who have a passion for advanced tech platforms with the plans, programs, policies, and information they need to succeed. Prior to starting P3 Tech Consulting, Dawn spent nearly 25 years of active duty as a member of the Judge Advocate General's Corps as a military attorney, where she performed a myriad of duties at various command echelons in the continental U.S. and deployed forward. Dawn holds a number of distinctions. She is an internationally recognized expert on uncrewed aircraft systems and advanced air mobility law and policy. She's listed in the eVTOL Insights 2022 Power Book. In 2021, she was named one of the top women in aerospace and aviation to follow on LinkedIn. And she's a recipient of the Women to Watch in UAS Leadership Award in 2019. Her endeavors in the drone law, regulatory, and policy arena include roles as a consultant for multiple aerospace companies, aerospace and defense contributor to Forbes.com, legal columnist for Inside Unmanned Systems and Inside GNSS magazines, a guest contributor to several other publications, host of the popular weekly Dawn of Drones podcast, and a conference planner. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Dawn talks about P3 Tech Consulting and the importance of connecting with others through various ways to get your message out. She also talks about this year's Xponential 2022 conference and why we all should attend. But before we hear from Dawn, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share in a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's learn how we can grow our business by connecting with others in a meaningful way with Dawn Zoldi of P3 Tech Consulting. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Dawn to introduce herself.
This is Dawn Zoldi. I am the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We connect people with a passion for advanced technology platforms with the plans, programs, policies, and information they need to succeed.
Dawn, how long have you been doing this?
Oh, boy. Okay. So in my actual company, just since October of 2019, but that was part-time because I was still a federal employee. So I really launched full-time in February of 2021.
Is that across the board for all industries or just the drone industry?
Uncrewed aircraft systems, advanced air mobility, and all the technological enablers that go along with that. Everything from artificial intelligence to spectrum to 5G to IoT, right? Position, navigation, timing, all of that. So I also cover obviously ground vehicles and underwater uncrewed vehicles as well. But those kind of all domain vehicles and those technological enablers is where I really focus my efforts.
From your perspective, what makes your company or your services stand out among others that might be providing similar services?
You know what I tell people, I feel like I'm somewhat of a unicorn in this industry insofar as, I have 28 years combined federal service, right? I think my TS/SCI clearance just expired. But I also have, I'm a licensed attorney. So I have legal training on top of that kind of national security and military background, and then obviously dabbling in the commercial side. So I think it's just kind of an interesting background that I bring to this. And frankly, I've been advocating for my entire career. And what I'm doing now in my company is not practicing law, but I kind of boil it down to education, but education and advocacy go hand in hand. I was for a stint there in the Air Force, I was a federal prosecutor, and you can't secure a conviction beyond reasonable doubt unless you can kind of distill, complex concepts down, apply facts to them, and convince somebody that your factual version is correct. So that advocacy, that education, I bring that forward into what I'm doing now for other companies.
What type of company or individual do you think would be most interested in the services you provide?
I'd say anybody that's looking to get the word out, because I've, over the past, year and a half, almost 2 years, I've built up a pretty significant brand across a number of platforms, including some of my own. So, I have my own podcast, I believe, as you know, Randy, called The Dawn of Drones. It's every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, affiliated with Drone Life on their Drone Life TV YouTube channel. So that's one way. I have a Clubhouse club called Drone Law Connections. It's up to 700 followers and growing, which is, an audio kind of platform, really interesting and intimate platform that I have a number of regulars that go in there. It's really fun. I do a ton of writing. So actually, I've been doing this all day long since the FAA just dropped their Beyond Visual Line of Sight Aviation Rulemaking Committee 400-page report yesterday. So, I'm distilling that down for Inside Unmanned Systems magazine. I also write for Forbes.com as an aerospace and defense contributor. Obviously work with Drone Life, and then folks like Military Embedded Systems and UAS Vision, and the list kind of goes on and on. So I also work with conference planning companies as well. So I provide conference planning as an adjunct planner, or in upcoming case with AUVSI, Xponential, I'm running my own one-day event called Law Tech Connect Workshop. So, you could see, Randy, how if a company wanted to really get the word out on what they're doing and tell their story, that I have the ability to do that across a whole different bunch of mediums in a compelling way and over a sustained period of time in a pretty good campaign. So that's what I would say about that. And obviously social media as well. I'm on every platform, and I think my LinkedIn is up to maybe 4,000 followers, and that continues to grow globally.
Based on your experience, what word or phrase would best describe the drone industry today?
I would say walking. And the reason why I say walking is because, the FAA always uses the phrase, hey, we're taking a crawl, walk, run approach. And I feel that the industry, we're walking. I mean, with this report that just came out yesterday, right? I mean, it's still going to be a little bit of a long walk ahead before we can run and before we get a final BVLOS rule. But some great recommendations in there, just as an example, over the past year, 2021, and even a little bit before that, unfortunately with COVID, the only upside or silver lining for the industry was this idea that drones are the ultimate social distancer. And so you saw drones being used increasingly for deliveries, whether it was, food to a rural area or medicines and things like this. And, the drones for good stories that came out in the mainstream media as a result of that, like, to me, that was huge. And so I think all of those things converging Obviously the R&D that continues with the Beyond program and folks up in North Dakota like Vantis and all the amazing things happening globally. I think we're at the walk stage. I'd say the industry is walking.
On April 25th through the 28th, AUVSI will host the largest industry trade show and conference on uncrewed systems. Xponential 2022 in Orlando, Florida, will separate the signal from the noise and is the only gathering for leaders and end users in every industry to share use cases, experience new technology, strike up new partnerships, and solve real problems. Dawn, you're one of the speakers at this year's event. What will be your topic?
Well, Randy, I'm almost laughing here. You can't see me, but because I'm doing a handful of things at AUVSI, I'm speaking about a lot of things. So number one, I am running my one-day Law Tech Connect workshop on Monday, April 25th, and I'll be emceeing that, moderating that. I put that entire thing together, from 7:30 to 5, 8 panels. I mean, just spectacular faculty, kicking it off with Brian Wynn, right? And the ABA president with some welcoming remarks, all the way through the FAA, Defense Innovation Unit, et cetera. Okay, so I'm not going to get into great details, but check it out, Law Tech Connect workshop. I hope you all sign up, because if you're going to AUVSI, you want to kick it off big, and I think that's the way to do it. The second thing I'm doing is I'm speaking on privacy. I believe that's Tuesday afternoon. The AUVSI folks had asked me to do something on that, so I'll be putting together a presentation later for Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday morning, I'm doing a book signing, actually, with the Unmanned Safety Institute, who basically commissioned me to write a book. It is called The Unmanned Aircraft Systems, Legal and Business Considerations, a Modern Primer for the Drone Industry. And that book covers everything from, Civics 101, like our 3 branches of government, all the way through, security, privacy, to, hey, if you're starting a new company, if you're an entrepreneur, here's some things you need to think about. So it's kind of a soup to nuts textbook for targeting, high schools, colleges, and even businesses for their professional development. See, what else am I doing? I'm missing. Oh, my podcast. I will be doing my podcast live. I just got the notice today from the floor on Wednesday. So my normal Dawn of Drones podcast at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then immediately following that normal podcast, I'm going to basically do kind of I'm going to have a string of folks that I'm going to talk to from the floor. So about 2 hours have been blocked off for that. And then Thursday, I'll probably do my Clubhouse live from somewhere running around the floor that day as well, while I'm attending the FAA US Symposium. So it's going to be a crazy busy week. We've got a lot of pans in the fire, but I'm super excited.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot going on. Now, regarding the legal requirements, there used to be a time when users could just grab a drone, go out and fly, and not worry much about anything. But today, companies and individuals have a number of concerns that they have to be aware of, mostly to protect themselves and their businesses. How would you characterize the growth of legal requirements over the last several years?
It's significant, right? So as you mentioned, even the recreational flyers now have to take the trust test. And that was a congressional mandate. That's not something the FAA hatched up in some back room, right? But they finally executed that. And, I took that test. It wasn't super hard, but it's something that everybody that flies a drone, recreationally is supposed to have. They're supposed to take that test and have that certificate, with them. So that's just one example. Things like operations over people, that rule came out, in January of last year with the remote ID rule, which has not been fully implemented, right? We know that September of this year is the target for manufacturers, and then September 2023 for operators. But, there's been a lawsuit, and that's, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with remote ID. But just knowing the landscape, knowing that you can now operate over people, for example, if you're in category 1, that's a big deal. And so many other things. So that's why I'm excited about my workshop, because the whole entire day is really dedicated with a mix of industry and lawyers talking together about these regulatory, legal, and policy requirements.
So it's going to look at the industry from a variety of different legal perspectives.
Well, from a variety of perspectives, including, non-lawyers. We've got industry leaders like John DeMush, CEO of Iris Automation, Cameron Schell from Dragonfly. He's the CEO. They're doing incredible things with artificial intelligence. Another perspective is military. So I have active duty JAGs, which are military lawyers, and retired, 1 and 2 star generals on these panels. So you're getting kind of that military perspective. And then, of course, yes, the legal perspective. And the lawyers we have lined up for this are the names. It's like who's who, really. It's a list of who's who. You've got, Grant Guillotte as an example, Lisa Ellman, Jonathan Ruprecht. These are probably names that you've heard of before, Randy, surely. And they are all going to be speaking at the event.
What are you looking forward to most about Xponential?
Well, as always, with any in-person event, I am absolutely looking forward to connecting with people and just networking, connecting with old friends, meeting new ones. We've all been kind of somewhat locked down for the last couple of years. Me in particular, I went from leading an office of, like 30 plus people at the Air Force Academy to working in my basement by myself. Being an extrovert, that's almost like painful for me physically, right? So to be able to get out and see people in person, people that I, met maybe on Clubhouse that I've never met in person and meet them, that's what I'm super excited about. It's going to be awesome.
Can you share any stories maybe of a client that attended a conference like Xponential and what it's done for them or their business afterwards?
Well, I'll give you an example. So Xponential last year was the first time I went, honestly, and I was just running around the floor. Literally blew out my knee. I was like running around so much. But I'll give you an example from a conference that occurred a couple weeks later. It was the Commercial UAV Conference, and that was in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's run by Diversified Communications. At that conference, I literally just put out on social media like, hey, everybody, it's Monday night. This thing kicks off tomorrow. Everybody just, because there was like a main hotel, it was at the Mirage in Las Vegas. I said, everybody meet at the lobby bar in the Mirage at 6:00. Anybody that's here. And I really didn't think anybody's going to show up. I'm telling you, Randy, it was amazing the number of people that just showed up. And what came out of that was, I'll give you one perfect example. I actually met a gentleman named Jamar Williams from Promo Drone. And they're doing incredible things with drones where, I'm sure you remember the biplanes that have the long banner behind it, like, Sally, marry me. They're doing that with drones. They've put, messaging, mesh net messaging also. And now they have a digital version of this that they attach to the drone. They fly around events. I just met him at this event. Again, one that I hatched up just kind of randomly and on, through social media. Just talking to him, making that connection. We kept in touch. I did an article about what he was doing. And then this past January at CES in Las Vegas, we did a thing called Edge 2022, which is kind of the former government. It was used to be called CES Government, and now it's called Edge. And it's run by the Government Business Executive Forum. Anyway, they had asked me to do a 2-hour thing on Lady Gaga's stage at the MGM Park Dolby Live Theater. And, Jamar was one of the people I had up on the stage with me. And, he brought the drone. So this is just one example of where you can make such rich and valuable connections at these conferences. And that's just one example of so many others.
What advice would you give to attendees to maximize their value or experience?
I'd say put yourself out there. It's totally easy to get lost in the crowd and just wander around and not talk to anybody and just, take the swag and go home. I would say engage in conversations, exchange business cards, go to the networking events, whether it's the AUVSI, influencers reception on Monday night. I know that AUVSI Florida chapter is putting on a big kickoff event at Top Golf Monday night. I say get out there, go to all of it, shake hands, meet people, and it's going to be a totally valuable experience.
Those are great suggestions. Now, I'd like to talk about your podcast. How long have you been doing the podcast?
Well, the Dawn of Drones that I'm doing now, we really kicked that off last August with Drone Life. So it's my producer, Mike Pahel, who used to be with Interdrone, and we kind of teamed up. We went to Mary McNabb at Drone Life and said, hey, we want to rebrand. Now, the reason why I'm saying rebrand is because originally Mike had come to me. I was working with Interdrone, building some conference content for their event. And in January of 2021, Mike came to me and said, hey, do you want to do a podcast? So that's my legacy podcast. That's what started me in podcasting. It was called Drones at Dawn. It was every Monday morning, with a cup of coffee kind of thing. And it was every week. It was a ton of fun. But once Interdrone had kind of pulled back on their conference, and there was a lot of uncertainty, Mike and I kind of went our separate ways, and we rebranded and aligned with Drone Life in August. And so it's slightly different, but the format is very similar. We pick a theme a month. This month, for example, March is UAS AAM Industry Diversity Month, sponsored by Iris Automation. And then next month, during AUVSI, it's Thought Leadership. And True Weather Solutions is sponsoring that month. So it's going to be awesome.
What have you liked most about doing the podcast?
I know this is going to sound corny, but it's a time for me to really get to know people and meet people. Like I said, I am an extrovert, and it's really cool just to have these conversations with people to understand where they're coming from and, what they're doing in their companies. So I just really enjoy that.
You also have a Clubhouse channel. What's been your experience?
I love Clubhouse. So the podcast it's interesting. I love it, and sometimes we'll get engagement in the chat, but it's so different from Clubhouse, where it's a little bit more anonymized in a way, in that, your picture's only up there. It's audio only, and people just jump right in. I will call it a lot more informal in format. And I still kind of lead my room or my club where I do conduct an interview, but I open it up for the last 15 minutes for Q&A, and people ask great questions. And there are lucrative and business connections coming out of Clubhouse where people will dial in, they'll hear something, and they'll say, hey, I want to connect with you after this. And it's a great way to get a more personal, direct connection with somebody in that platform. And it seems to be really working. I'll give you one great example. And this is an extreme example. So this is not expect this if you work with me. But US Drone Soccer, between my podcast and the Clubhouse, actually had 50 active leads. Now that's pretty huge from just those two things and maybe the article I wrote for them. But it's just an example when people heard about US Drone Soccer and they could ask questions of Kyle Sanders and David Roberts in person, kind of, and get those questions answered. People are like, I want to volunteer. I want to get involved. How do I get this started in North Carolina? And then the emails have flowed afterwards, and those connections were made.
Is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
I think we covered a lot of ground there, Randy. What I would encourage people to do is definitely check out the Law Tech Connect workshop. I hope folks sign up for that, because, if you're going to AUVSI and you're going to those evening events on Monday, why would you not want to start networking early? And unless, you're public safety and you're headed to drone responders, or you're a weather person, you're going to the weather thing, or a maintenance person going to that maintenance, you should be coming to mine. And it'll be great. You're going to love it.
And for my final question, Dawn, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry?
I say the future is bright. I'm usually a glass half empty type of person, but like I said, I think we're walking right now, and I'm really excited to start seeing the jog. I feel like we're going to be in a jog, by 2023, easily 2024, and then we're off and running. And so many people have been waiting for this moment. I feel like we're really at an inflection point, and it's going to be great. So I'm excited to be a part of it.
That's it for episode 356 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Dawn Zoldi of P3 Tech Consulting. I want to thank Dawn for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about P3 Tech Consulting or want to connect with Dawn, check out the website at p3techconsulting.com. And remember, on April 25th to the 28th, AUVSI will present Xponential 2022 in Orlando, Florida. It's the largest gathering of the uncrewed systems industry, and you're going to want to be part of it. Go to exponential.org for more information and to register. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.